This is a real pleasure to sit down and talk with you about Harry Potter. I can't believe it's been 20 years since that movie came out in theaters. It's crazy.
It's insane.
So I guess my first question I was going to ask, looking back on the film 20 years later, knowing where J.K. Rowling's novels ended up, would you tackle the film any differently, knowing what you know now?
No, I mean, the only time that ever came up really is we had a conversation. We had 3 novels when we started the first film. I read Goblet of Fire. I read the transcript of Goblet of Fire before we started shooting the first film. So we knew it was our goal to, I thought at the time I'm going to do all 7 movies. Little did I know that I would be exhausted after 2. 320 steady days of shooting will do that. But the idea was that the films would get progressively darker and darker and darker. And Joe Rowling basically shared that with David Heyman, the producer, and Steve Kloves, the writer. And she shared a very important piece of information over dinner with Alan Rickman. She told him what would happen to Snape in the 7th book. She basically outlined his character. So when I was shooting scenes with Alan, sometimes he would do something, some weird idiosyncrasy or something that I was like, why? So I'd walk up to him and said, why did you just do that? He said, you'll know when you read the 7th book. So everyone had a certain secret that Joe Rowling told them that fueled their characters.
Well, that's fantastic. One of the, I think, more iconic bits of Harry Potter is John Williams' score. And you worked with John on quite a bit of your projects early on. Do you remember your reaction when hearing his iconic theme for the first time?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, being on that stage and to watch John conduct is cinematically a historical experience. So when he had played it for me on the piano, and when I heard it on the piano, that dun 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 dun, I knew we had something special. I was like, oh, this is the guy who wrote the Star Wars theme, the Raiders theme, the Jaws theme. He's done it again. So I would work with John on every movie. Unfortunately, he's John Williams and he's not always available, but his score was iconic and it's just beautiful.
Absolutely. And then Daniel, Emma, and Rupert have all become talented, gone on to have great careers, and they were all talented actors and actresses in their own right. What drew you to each of them for these particular roles?
Well, Rupert and Emma were pretty obvious that I felt that they had jumped off the page, and become. And when I saw a BBC production of David Copperfield that Dan was in, and that was the moment. He was only in it for 4 minutes, but I ran to the casting director the next day and I said, this is our Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe. She said, you'll never get him because his parents do not want him exposed to this kind of fame. And I just kept begging and begging. And luckily, David Heyman, the producer, went to the theater one night and 4 rows ahead of him was Daniel Radcliffe and his father. And David, being the great producer that he is, went up to the Radcliffes and convinced them to come in for an audition. And that's when we knew we had our Harry Potter.
And after all these years, why do you think Harry Potter became such a cultural landmark or milestone in both literature and pop culture, or in the cinematic landscape?
I just think that we set out to make the first films timeless. In other words, the mantra to my crew on Home Alone, as far back as Home Alone, was, when this film is shown 20 years from now, and it's on TV at 2:30 in the morning, I want it to feel as fresh as it did in 1990. I want people to think, oh, this was made yesterday. Well, that was the mantra on Harry Potter. We wanted people to share in a timeless experience, And you learn, cinematically, you learn from the classics. You learn from movies that have stood the test of time. There's a reason The Wizard of Oz is still being shown and people still love it, So that's basically what was helpful in people still watching the film.